Roller coasters are a game of expectations. You may come off one thinking, wow, that was a lot better than I thought it would be. Or you might say, ooh, really? That's what all the hype was about? And that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Today I'm going to be looking at the 5 most overrated and the 5 most underrated roller coasters. The number 5 most overrated coaster I've ridden is Intimidator at Carowinds. When people call this one of the best B&M hypercoasters, it really makes me scratch my head. I have several problems with this ride. It's got a pretty nasty rattle and a bunch of airtimeless airtime hills with harsh trim brakes. It also has a really boring out and back layout with nothing special about it. And also it has a really harsh mid-course that makes the already bland finale even worse by making it crawl into the brake run. But the reason this is only at number 5 is it is a B&M Hyper, so there's at least somewhat decent floater airtime on the first drop, and some of the trimless airtime hills have decent airtime, but I just don't think it's nearly as good as most enthusiasts make it out to be. At number 5 for underrated, I have the Bat at my home park of Kings Island. This ride absolutely flies. A lot of the swinging on this is some of the craziest swinging you'll find on any aero suspended coaster. Because of how tucked away this ride is, a lot of enthusiasts and general public just tend to ignore it. But when you actually look at what this ride has to offer, it has fantastic pacing, flies through the course, and really leaves you breathless by the end. The 4th most overrated coaster I've ridden is Montu at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Now, I did ride this under bad conditions. It was a pretty cold day in Florida, and cold is like 80 degrees. But the park was also dead, and I ended up riding on this train all by myself. It was literally just me and my dad. I snagged the back row, but I thought the ride was forceless. At not one moment during the ride did I feel the heel of my shoe coming off. There was no face peeling, no sort of intensity. And that's why I think this ride is very overrated. It's okay if you like it, but it's just not my favorite ride. The 4th most underrated coaster I've ridden is the Boss at Six Flags St. Louis. Now, this is the highest ranked coaster on the list, but the reason it's this low is because it's not so much underrated, it's more just polarizing. But it seems like more people hate this coaster than like it. And as you can see by this POV, it's very, very rough, and that is the main criticism. But this ride is so fast, and it's so relentless, and it's my favorite coaster at Six Flags St. Louis, and one of my favorite coasters of all time. 3rd most overrated roller coaster I've ever ridden is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. I love this ride. It's very high on my list. In fact, it's the highest ranked coaster on either list. But there is a caveat there. There is a catch. I don't regard it nearly as highly as most other enthusiasts. Honestly, it kind of feels like a baby ride. I think the model should be called Mock Spinner because I think Sierra Sidewinder is a little bit more extreme than this is. That's not to say the whole ride is bad. I still really love this coaster. Like, I think the first drop is the greatest element ever, but I just think this is a little bit overhyped, and it's definitely a little bit too mild for my personal intensity-loving taste. After riding that, you can come across the park and ride the 3rd most underrated coaster I've ridden, Powder Keg. This ride is a rush, and it's really weird to think that this used to be a water coaster. It was converted into an S&S air launch, and that air launch is really powerful. It'll leave your stomach behind. The layout is really good, too. It has lots of large camelbacks and twisting track throughout the woods, and it really takes you on a tour of the scenery. Not all is great, though. After this little tour, it takes you up a lift hill. This really feels strange in this fast-paced ride, but it does serve for the best part of the ride besides the launch, that awesome drop. The drop sends you into the final helix that ends the ride. This is just a really great ride that's often overlooked at Silver Dollar City. The 2nd most overrated roller coaster I've ridden is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. While some people look at this as an elite airtime machine that's better than Storm Chaser, I look at it as a letdown. Whenever I think of Lightning Run, I always think of a short, airtimeless ride that doesn't do very much in terms of forces. Now, granted, I did only ride this once in the morning with an empty train, but that ride was in the back row and I didn't get thrown out of my seat once. And after all, why would I ride this again when Storm Chaser, my number 7 coaster, is literally in the same park? Overall, not a horrible ride, but I don't think it's ever going to be cracking my top 10. The second most underrated roller coaster is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. A lot of enthusiasts talk down to this ride, and that's a real shame because it's my second favorite at Carowinds. I absolutely love this thing. It's super well-rounded with its hang time-filled inversions, elite airtime, and really fun laterals that throw you into the side of the train. It's also a really long ride that seems to last forever, and I really wish I had this at my home park. This is a great ride to fill out any park's collection, and it's always been one of my favorites at Carowinds, and I could ride this all day. The most overrated roller coaster that I've ridden is Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa. Yes, Busch Gardens Tampa is getting two equally unpopular opinions. I just think it's a pretty overrated park. There, throwing another one at you. I see Kumba the same way that I see, like, Wildfire, or even the Incredible Hulk. It's just another B&M looper with cookie-cutter elements. But why is Wildfire so overlooked, but Kumba always put in the spotlight? What's so special about it? It's got the same generally boring elements, not to mention a rattle with some really headbanger moments. What is so special about Kumba? If you know, tell me in the comments, or you can just scream at me, I don't care. But in my opinion, this is the most overrated roller coaster. The most underrated roller coaster I've ridden is another Busch Gardens one, Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This does everything that Banshee does, but so much better. Banshee is another long, large-scale invert, but unlike Banshee, this ride is extremely forceful. On every element, especially the Cobra roll, surprisingly, you can really feel the heel of your shoe coming off. In fact, I was actually afraid that my shoe would come off on this ride. And if the mid-course slows you down a lot, which it didn't when I rode it, then you'll get a lot of hang time in the last inversions. But for me, I was flying through those inversions, and that really sent the blood rushing to my feet. This ride was just a rush, and it was really hard to walk after getting off of this, and that's always a good sign when riding a B&M inverted coaster. Definitely the most underrated roller coaster I've ridden. I know there's at least one opinion in this video that's made you yell at your screen. If so, tell me what it was in the comments. And if there was anything on here that you actually agreed with, let me know too. This was a really fun video to make, and I hope you liked it too, and I'll see you guys in the next one.